Over 3 billion years ago, life first appeared in the seas of an infant Earth. Over 400 million years ago, living creatures left the protective waters to begin life on land. About 2 million years ago, the earliest man walked upright on the land. 204 years ago, James Watt made improvements to the steam engine and began the age of technology, forever altering the course of man. 66 years ago, two men named Wright again changed the pattern of life on this planet. Today, men first left the protective atmosphere of Earth to walk in the vacuum of the moon. And we may wonder, will our lives ever be the same? Will future generations look back from the Earth, from another planet, from another star, and say, this was the beginning? Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Buzz Aldrin. 3 men to represent the culmination of a dream and the beginning of a new concept of reality. So they rose through the atmosphere toward the open vacuum. A trip not only through space, but through time. Toward a world untouched by the evolutionary processes of Earth. A journey that was to be a door to the future and a window on the past. Now in Earth orbit, it was time for Trans-Lunar Injection, the start of the trip out.
Hello, this is Houston. Slightly less than 1 minute to ignition, and everything is go.
Roger. Ignition.
We confirm ignition, and the thrust is go.
The burn completed, on their way to the moon. The next step was to jettison their launch vehicle, turn around and dock with the lunar module, still attached to the third stage. Pulling free now of the useless third stage, they continue their coasting flight.
Hi, Houston, Apollo 11. How many miles out do you have it now?
Roughly about 50,000.
A beautiful sight.
So they coasted toward the moon. As Jason sought the Golden Fleece to regain a kingdom, these three sought a cargo of knowledge to gain a kingdom for all men, a kingdom of infinite frontier. Then on July 19, 1969, Apollo 11 prepared for LOI, Lunar Orbit Insertion.
11, this is Houston. You are go for LOI, over.
Roger, go for LOI.
And we've had loss of signal as Apollo 11 goes behind the moon.
Now those of us on the Earth waited for the radio signal to be acquired as Armstrong, Collins, and Aldrin emerged from their first transit behind the moon.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. How do you read?
Reading you loud and clear, Houston. How are you?
Over 3 billion years ago, life first appeared in the seas of an infant Earth. Over 400 million years ago, living creatures left the protective waters to begin life on land. About 2 million years ago, the earliest man walked upright on the land. 204 years ago, James Watt made improvements to the steam engine and began the age of technology, forever altering the course of man. 66 years ago, two men named Wright again changed the pattern of life on this planet. Today, men first left the protective atmosphere of Earth to walk in the vacuum of the moon. And we may wonder, will our lives ever be the same? Will future generations look back from the Earth, from another planet, from another star, and say, this was the beginning? Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Buzz Aldrin. 3 men to represent the culmination of a dream and the beginning of a new concept of reality. rose through the atmosphere toward the open vacuum. A trip not only through space, but through time. Toward a world untouched by the evolutionary processes of Earth. A journey that was to be a door to the future and a window on the past. Now in Earth orbit, it was time for Trans-Lunar Injection, the start of the trip out.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Slightly less than 1 minute to ignition, and everything is go.
Roger. Ignition.
We confirm ignition, and the thrust is go.
The burn completed, on their way to the moon. The next step was to jettison their launch vehicle, turn around and dock with the lunar module, still attached to the third stage. Pulling free now of the useless third stage, they continue their coasting flight.
Hi, Houston, Apollo 11. How many miles out do you have us now?
Roughly about 50,000.
It's a beautiful sight.
So they coasted toward the moon. As Jason sought the golden fleece to regain a kingdom, these three sought a cargo of knowledge to gain a kingdom for all men, a kingdom of infinite frontier. Then on July 19th, 1969, Apollo 11 prepared for LOI, Lunar Orbit Insertion.
11, this is Houston. You are go for LOI, over.
Roger, go for LOI.
And we've had loss of signal as Apollo 11 goes behind the moon.
Now those of us on the Earth waited for the radio signal to be acquired as Armstrong, Collins, and Aldrin emerged from their first transit behind the moon.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. How do you read?
Reading you loud and clear, Houston. How are you?
The next day, July 20th, marked the beginning of a new era. Mike Collins, alone in the command module called Columbia, watched as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin undocked the lunar module called Eagle. As the Eagle rotated slowly, Collins inspected it carefully. For now it was time for the descent to the surface of the moon and into history.
Eagle, Houston, we're all go. How does it look?
Eagle has wings.
Roger.
Looking good.
Roger, Neil.
A separation maneuver had placed the command module below the Eagle, so that half an orbit later, there would be a safe clearance for DOI, Descent Orbit Insertion. Armstrong and Aldrin looked down at Columbia as they passed over the landing site.
Eagle, Houston, you're a go for DOI, over.
Roger, go for DOI. Do you have LOS and AOS on?
Roger. Both looking good, going over the hill.
Again, Eagle and Columbia passed behind the moon. When they emerged, Eagle would be on the way down, awaiting the signal that would begin the powered descent and end with man's first lunar landing.
Eagle, Houston, we rig you now. You're a go for PDI, over. Roger, understand.
That's the Earth, right out our front window.
"50,000 feet above the moon, Eagle's descent engine ignited and began the deceleration for landing. As they descended, Armstrong and Aldrin watched the craters and mountains of the moon pass beneath them.
You're a go for landing, over.
Roger, understand. Go for landing.
At this point, the Eagle rolled onto its back to give the landing radar surface acquisition. Now the crew was flying blind, hurtling toward the lunar surface. Only their instruments and the voice of mission control telling them where they were, until the slow pitch maneuver brought the lunar horizon to their view.
100 feet, 3.5 down, 9 forward. 5%. How many bites? Okay, 75 feet. Star's looking good, down a half. 6 forward.
60 seconds.
Lights on. 6. Down 2.5. Forward. Forward. That's 40 feet, down 2.5. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Straight shadow. 4 forward. 4 forward. Drift into the right a little. 20, down a half.
30 seconds.
Forward. Just picking up some dust. Got the shadow out there. Contact light. Okay, engine stop.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
Very smooth touchdown.
And to Mike Collins, alone in the orbiting Columbia.
Eagle is at Tranquility, over.
Yeah, I heard the whole thing.
Well, good show. Tranquility, be advised there are lots of smiling faces in this room and all over the world, over.
Well, there are 2 of them up here.
Roger, it was a beautiful job, you guys.
And don't forget one in the command module.
Roger.
Now, we'll get to the details of what's around here, but it looks like a collection of just about every variety of shape, angularity, granularity, but every variety of rock you could find. There doesn't appear to be too much of a general color at all.
We see some angular blocks out several hundred feet in front of us that are probably 2 feet in size and have angular edges.
Now in the lesser gravity of the moon, Armstrong and Aldrin donned their equipment and prepared to explore this stark, lonely world.
Do you think you can open the hatch at this pressure, about 0.12 psi?
We're going to try it.
Roger.
The hatch is coming open.
Guided by Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, in his bulky suit, worked his way through the Eagle's forward hatch.
How am I doing? You're doing fine.
Okay, Houston, I'm on the porch.
Roger, Neil. And we're getting a picture on the TV.
I'm at the foot of the ladder. The limb footpads are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. No difficulty in moving around as we suspected. It's even perhaps easier than the simulations of 16G that we performed in various simulations on the ground. Absolutely no trouble to walk around.
Oh, that looks beautiful from here, Neil.
It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here.
Armstrong next set about taking pictures and collecting a contingency sample of lunar soil.
Surface is fine and powdery. I can kick it up loosely with my toe. It does adhere in fine layers, like powdered charcoal, to the sole and sides of my boot. I only go in a small fraction of an inch, maybe an eighth of an inch, but I can see the footprints of my boots and the treads in the fine sandy particles.
Then it was time for Aldrin to join him.
Are you ready?
All set.
Now I want to back up and partially close the hatch. Making sure not to lock it on my way out.
Particularly good thought.
That's our home for the next couple hours. We want to take good care of it.
There you go.
Okay, now I think I'll do the same.
There you got it.
That's a good step.
Yeah. About a 3-footer.
Beautiful view.
Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Isn't it fine?
Then the first man on the moon read a plaque attached to a leg of the Eagle. A plaque representing the philosophy of a nation that itself, less than 2 centuries earlier, had been thought by many so-called practical men an impractical dream.
Underneath it says, "Dear men from the planet Earth, set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace for all mankind. It has the crew members' signatures and the signature of the President of the United States.
And as we watched them plant the flag of the United States in the lunar soil, we perhaps wondered, what dream dreamt today by what impractical dreamer will be tomorrow's reality?
Columbia, this is Houston, reading you loud and clear, over.
Yeah, reading you loud and clear. How's it going?
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike, it really is.
Oh, geez, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent?
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
Now Buzz Aldrin developed the choreography for future lunar explorers, the steps with which those who follow will traverse the moon.
All right, you do have to be rather careful to keep track of where your center of mass is. Sometimes it takes about 2 or 3 paces to make sure that you've got your feet underneath you. And about 2 or 3 or maybe 4 easy paces can bring you to a fairly smooth stop. Like a football player, you just have to put out to the side and cut a little bit. So-called kangaroo hop does work, but it seems your forward stability is not quite as good.
Neil and Buzz, the President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you, over.
That would be an honor.
Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the Sea of Tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but men of peace of all nations, and with interest and a curiosity and with a vision for the future. Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
As Armstrong and Aldrin set about the business of collecting samples and setting up experiments, Earth observed them.
Heart rates on both crewmen averaging between 90 and 100. Flight surgeon reports they're in great shape.
Watching their loping, skating stride, it was as though we peered through a lens that distorted time itself.
Houston, I don't think there's any hope for using this leveling device to come up with an accurate level.
Roger, 11. Press on.
I believe the ball is right in the middle now.
Wonderful. Take a picture before it moves.
So they went about their tasks of exploration, aliens on a distant world. And, strangely enough, they looked as if they belonged there.
Buzz, this is Houston. You have approximately 3 minutes until you must commence your EVA termination activities. Over.
Roger, understand.
It was now time to leave the dusty lunar plain, stow the experiment, samples, and photographs to be returned to Earth.
Main hatch is closed and latched and verified secure.
Next, jettison the now useless equipment, clean house in the Eagle, and rest for the next day's liftoff and rendezvous.
Eagle and Columbia, this is the backup crew. Our congratulations to yesterday's performance, and our prayers are with you for the rendezvous. Over.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim.
For liftoff, the ascent engine would push the Eagle into orbit. For this one maneuver, this engine would have to work. There was no alternative. We listened to the countdown from the moon.
Our guidance recommendation is pings, and you're cleared for takeoff.
Roger, understand. We're number 1 on the runway. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, port stage, engine arm ascent, proceed. Beautiful. 26, 36 feet per second up. 5 foot of pitch over. Very smooth.